This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, and yes, I am here taking a brief respite from my week-long vacation during the MLB All-Star break because I still fulfilling my promise to deliver weekly CFL analysis. We're going to take a look ahead to Week 4 in the Canadian Football League. 4 games on the slate starting on Wednesday, July the 13th this week. Let's get to it, starting with the matchup between the Ottawa Redblacks and the Toronto Argonauts, a big-time East Division battle between these two teams on Wednesday night. And what more can we say about the way the Redblacks have played? They have been very, very strong here in the early going. Ottawa off to a 2-0-1 start. A rare tie for the Red Blacks last week. A tie which you don't see very often in the CFL. 26-26 against the Calgary Stampeders. It was a very good showing once again for the Ottawa Red Blacks offense. What else is new? Trevor Harris continues to just be fantastic at the quarterback position for this team. 80% completions, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's just been phenomenal. Chris Williams, a big-time speedster at receiver, has just been crushing defenses with his speed and his ability to make plays in the open field with the football in his hands. 3 touchdowns last week for Chris Williams at receiver. Just another fantastic performance for him. This Ottawa offense, it's given everybody fits. I mean, Calgary's defense is no joke, and Ottawa still able to move the football with a high degree of effectiveness against that Stampeders defense last week. Very impressive. Now they go to Toronto, and an Argos defense that really seems to be playing better last couple of games. They just got absolutely gashed by Hamilton in Week 1 at BMO Field, losing 42-20, but they bounced back. 2 straight wins against BC and Saskatchewan, hold those teams to 31 points combined in those 2 games. It's going to be tough sledding, though, for them here, because BC's offense has been a little erratic. Saskatchewan's offense, of course, with Darian Durant still trying to work his way back from an early season injury last year that knocked him out and ended his season prematurely. So I think it's going to be a situation where Toronto's defense is going to be tested quite a bit more by Trevor Harris. And Trevor Harris is going to want to win this game. Believe me, this is the team he used to play on as a backup to Ricky Ray. And he wants to show the Argos, I'm sure, that he is ready to be a number 1 quarterback in this league and help the Ottawa Redblacks to victory. Let's give Ricky Ray credit. He played a lot better, probably his best game of the season last week in the win against BC. They scored 25 points, the Argos. They got a very good balance of the pass and the run going. Brandon Whitaker was finally able to run the football with effectiveness. Finally, Toronto's offense showing some balance, and against a very good BC defense. So they deserve credit for being able to win that game on the road last week against the Lions. And I think this is one of those games where we should see offenses actually probably have the better of the play in this game. Could be a little bit of a higher scoring game, and I'm still reluctant to go against Ottawa. Let's not forget, Toronto, one previous home game, didn't exactly play well. They got bombed by Hamilton. So if I had to play this one from a side perspective, I'd lean a little bit to Ottawa. Maybe a chance for the game as well to be a little bit more higher scoring as well. Let's move on now to Thursday's game, July 14th. We've got Edmonton taking on Winnipeg. The Edmonton Eskimos fortunate to escape with a victory against Saskatchewan last week. We had Saskatchewan plus 10 as my CFL play of the week in Week 3. A nice winner with the Rough Riders there as they get the cover as 10-point underdogs, losing 39-36 in a wild one to the Edmonton Eskimos. Edmonton, the same issues are plaguing them. Their defense has fallen off a cliff compared to where it was last season as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they got to a Grey Cup last year and won a Grey Cup because their defense was spectacular. It hasn't been that way so far here in 2016. A lot of new faces on that side of the ball. They've had no pass rush whatsoever, which is surprising because that defensive line is supposed to be the strength for this Eskimos defense, and I haven't heard a thing from Odell Willis and Almondo Sewell on that defensive line. Hello? Are we going to hear from you guys? You're supposed to be the pass rushing sources here for this Edmonton defense, and we got APBs out on you. You can't find you. That's going to have to change for this Edmonton defense. They got to start getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks because that secondary is vulnerable. I mean, it can be had. That pass defense has been atrocious so far for Edmonton. Teams are moving the ball up and down the field so far against them. We saw Ottawa put up 45 points against Edmonton's defense, 36 for Saskatchewan last week. Only reason Edmonton wins is because Mike Riley and that prolific Edmonton no-huddle offense, they get in gear and they score 39 points themselves. So no surprise, Edmonton 2-0 to the over. Their offense way ahead of their defense at this time of the season. And Winnipeg, on the other hand, Let's give Winnipeg credit. They were miserable in their first 2 weeks. We've talked about it last week, actually, how bad the Blue Bombers looked against Montreal and Calgary. But they got it back on the tracks with a 28-24 road win at Hamilton last week. Drew Willie and the offense finally got some traction, finally started moving the football, sustaining drives. They went 2-and-out for the first 2 games. They finally started to put some long drives together and keep their defense fresher later in the game. We'll see if they can build on that, because they're definitely facing an Edmonton defense that is clearly still searching for themselves, still trying to find their way. So Winnipeg's offense might be able to build on that performance last week against the Edmonton Eskimo, or against the Hamilton Ticats rather, because they are facing a very weak Edmonton defense that clearly looks like they're going to take some time to come together, if they do at all. We're going to come back to this game because I'm using this game as my CFL play of the week for week 4. We'll get back to it at the end of the video, and I'll give you my recommendation on this game. Let's move on now to Friday. Hamilton, Montreal. 1-2 Hamilton, 1-1 Montreal. Montreal off a bye week. They did not play in week 3 last week, so the Alouettes back, and Alouettes absolutely dealing with a ton of question marks from an injury perspective coming into this game. You would think off the bye week you're getting guys healthy again, fresh, ready to go. Not the case with this Montreal team. They are dealing with key injuries on offense everywhere you look, especially at wide receiver, and suspensions, might I add. I mean, Kenny Stafford, 6-game injured list with a toe injury. We've got S.J. Green, of course, out for the season with a knee injury suffered against Ottawa in Week 2. We've got Duron Carter and the stupid, idiotic actions he took in that Ottawa game, where he went to the sideline, bumped the Ottawa Red Blacks head coach Rick Campbell. He's likely going to have to serve a 1-game suspension here for this game against Hamilton. He's appealing it. From what I've heard, he's probably not likely to win the appeal, so I would expect him to have to serve this 1-game suspension. Duron Carter here as the Alouettes take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So Kenny Stafford out, S.J. Green out due to injury. Duron Carter likely not going to play due to a suspension. That's the 3 top receivers on this Montreal team. Who is the Alouette quarterback going to throw to? And then on top of that, we don't even know who the hell this Alouette quarterback is that's going to play this game, because Kevin Glenn, he didn't practice today. He's dealing with an injury, an eye injury, and he's no sure thing to suit up at quarterback for Montreal in this game. So we could be looking at Rakeem Cato, the Marshall Thundering Herd product, as the starting quarterback here for Montreal in this game. Just tons of question marks. Going to have to do digging later in the week. I would advise people to do that as well if you're going to bet on this game. Get a clear, accurate read and assessment of this Montreal situation with their injuries and with the Duron Carter suspension, because you're going to want to make sure that whether Duron Carter's in or out, because this is a cluster absence scenario right now with this Montreal receiving core. They could be absolutely gutted with missing people when they play Friday night against the Hamilton Ticats. And what do you make of Hamilton? They have that dominating win in Toronto in Week 1 without Zach Collaros, Jeremiah Masoli, who's taken over the reins at quarterback while Collaros is injured. Sure looked good in that game, but he didn't look good in 2 games after that. I mean, against BC, they lose 28-3 at home. And then Winnipeg last week, they lose 28-24 at home. And Jeremiah Masoli turns the ball over 5 times. I mean, he treated the football like a damn hand grenade. He didn't want any part of it. Oh, the football? Yeah, get this football off of me. Ugh. What a terrible thing that is. Get it away from me. That's what Masoli was basically doing last week against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mean, it was so bad. 2 interceptions, 3 lost fumbles for Jeremiah Masoli in that loss to Winnipeg. I mean, butterfingers he was. He couldn't hold on to the football. It cost the game. Cost Hamilton the game. Hamilton could have won that game. Played well enough in spurts to win that game. It was a pretty even football game. But if you're a quarterback, in this case Masoli, throws 2 picks, loses 3 fumbles, you can't overcome that, period. Can't overcome that. And Hamilton was not able to last week when they faced Winnipeg. So ball security, Ken Austin, the head coach, has been stressing that. We'll see if Masoli can clean that up, because if he can and they play a clean game on offense, they still have more weapons than Montreal. Again, an unsettled quarterback situation with Glenn injured. Will it be him or Cato? The receiving core is decimated for Montreal. So I think Hamilton's got a chance to win this football game. They've had a tough time over the years winning in Montreal. That would be the one concern. I mean, it's been really a horror show for Hamilton trying to win in Montreal. I mean, they're on this unbelievable losing streak. The Hamilton Ticats in terms of playing in Montreal. But if they're going to finally snap it, this might be the time. And let's not forget their one win earlier this season came on the road. So maybe it's a team that's going to struggle at home like they have the last 2 weeks, maybe a little bit better on the road. I'd lean maybe a little bit to Hamilton in this game, and also under the total. It's a low total. It's the lowest total on this week's CFL board, around 47 and a half, but I do think it could be a lower scoring game. I just don't know where Montreal is going to throw the football with all these issues that they're dealing with at the receiver position going into this game. All right, we're going to wrap it up with Saturday's game. BC taking on Saskatchewan, and for the first time this season, I lose a bet on the BC Lions. I took BC in Week 1. They beat Calgary. I took them in Week 2. They beat up on Hamilton. But I took them at home in Week 3 against Toronto, with Toronto in a little bit of a tricky spot, second straight road game, and the Lions got dominated. They really did. Couldn't move the football at all. Jonathan Jennings, who I think has what it takes to be a promising quarterback in this league, he was dreadful, really, in the first half. He took a big step back. It got so bad that Wally Buono actually put Travis Lulay into the game at quarterback for BC in the second half, but it didn't matter. They lose 25-14. Defense played well again, but again, they got worn down. The offense just wasn't moving the football. They were out on the field too long in the second half and eventually got worn down by the Argos. We'll see if BC can bounce back now. First loss of the season. They're now 2-1. We'll see if they can answer the bell here, traveling to Saskatchewan, where Chris Jones is finding out very quickly it's going to be not a simple, quick fix to turn around the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, a brilliant 26-10 straight-up record as a head coach in Edmonton for Chris Jones in 2 seasons. Well, you're 0-2 straight up here with Saskatchewan. Welcome to Riderville here, Chris. Hope you have fun. 30-17 loss for Saskatchewan in Week 1. 39-36 loss against Edmonton last week. A wild game. Darian Durant played well, but again, the defense going to take some time. They're playing a very good Edmonton offense. Chris Jones will get the defense playing better, but they had a lot of injuries on the defensive line. It could be some issues, some shuffling as well in the secondary too for this Saskatchewan team. So that defense is still a work in progress. I know Chris Jones is a defensive genius, but you're going to have to give this guy time to get it going. Maybe this is the spot for Saskatchewan to finally get that first win, but you got to lay 2 now pretty much across the board. Saskatchewan is a home favorite here, about -2. Might even go up to 2.5, it looks like, as a home favorite, Saskatchewan here over BC. That's a tough game. This is probably the toughest game for me this week in the CFL. If it gets to +3, I might be tempted by BC one more time, because I do think this team has a better game in them than they showed last week. Probably going to be eager as well to bounce back from losing at home to Toronto. And Saskatchewan laying points to me is still a tricky proposition. Look no further than Week 1 against Toronto as a 3.5-point favorite there. They lose outright. 10-point dog. We had Saskatchewan last week at Edmonton. They lose by 3 but get the point spread cover. I just get that feeling right now. Saskatchewan is one of those teams I'd rather be betting on in the underdog role than in the favorites role right now. So for that reason, I'm not really rushing to lay any points right now with the Rough Riders. So right now, not much of an opinion on that game. Tough to call from a totals perspective too, but I might be a little bit interested, mildly interested in BC if that number climbs a little bit. And we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go this video with my play of the week for Week 4 in the CFL. We're going to go back to the Edmonton-Winnipeg game. We had a nice winner with Saskatchewan in our Week 3 CFL Play of the Week last week. That improves our record to 2-1 with the Play of the Week through 3 weeks. We're going to try to make it 3-1 here, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, +3.5 as a home underdog here against the Edmonton Eskimos. Winnipeg's finally got a jolt of confidence from beating Hamilton on the road last week. I think that's going to help them. Edmonton's defense, I do not trust them one bit when laying points. I mean, I just do not. 0-2 against the spread, both as favorites in their first 2 games against Ottawa and Saskatchewan. Life and death to beat Saskatchewan. They might be life and death to beat this game. I do not want to lay more than a field goal on the road with a bad defense. That's just a negative proposition from a betting perspective long term. Let's take Winnipeg, +3.5 as a home underdog against Edmonton on Thursday night. That game takes place July 14th. That's your CFL Week 4 Play of the Week. And that will do it for my look at CFL Week 4. From a betting perspective, I'm sports handicapper Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.